lesson is about graphing linear inequalities. And we're going to look at what that really means. The first thing we need to talk about is then what kind of line to draw. Now, we talked about inequalities before, where we might have said we didn't have two variables, but we might have said x is greater than 5. And when we did that, we said we used an open circle to graph that on a number line. Or we might have said 3 or x is less than or equal to 3. And we graphed that with a closed dot or just a solid dot. So what we're looking at now is, because these are linear equations with two variables, then it's going to affect the type of line that we draw. And a greater than or less than, we're going to use a dotted line, very much like the open circle. Really what it means is that dotted line is not a solution. It's not equal to that dotted line, but that dotted line is a boundary. We'll talk about that a little bit later. Or if it's greater than or equal to or less than or equal to, we're going to graph that with a solid line, meaning that any point that falls on that line is a part of that boundary, part of that solution set. So that's really all we have to remember to start out with. That doesn't seem too tough. So I want to enable the poll here. We'll try it right quick to see how this works. For number 1, okay? I've never done a poll. So number 1, so get ready for this. I want to know, is it a solid line? Do not answer it out loud or unmute. Or is it a dotted line? By the way, I get a readout on what your answer is, and I'll be giving you kind of a participation grade probably on that. So here we go. It'll tell me your name and everything. And so hold on just for a second. Here comes the poll. Now it's live. So answer that right quick. Is it a solid line or a dotted line for number 1? Y is greater than or equal to 3x minus 2. Okay, I've got a grand total of 4 folks that have voted so far. So far, we're dead even. 6 people say it's a solid line. 5 say it's a dotted line. So there's still only 11 people who have filled in that poll. So hurry up, get that poll done, because this is an opportunity to get easy participation credit. All right, I'm going to end the poll in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, so the majority of you had it right. The correct answer is a solid line. So let's look at number 2. Okay, and I got to be honest with you, nobody should miss this one. Question is the same. Is in number 2, is it a solid line or a dotted or broken line? All right, so there's your question. And I'll let you answer it real quick. There are there should be 17 answers in the last one. Only 12 people participated. So let's try to get a few more of you to participate right quick, all of you, if that would be possible. Brittany's asking, how do you do the poll? Somebody help me out here because this is brand new. How are we doing the poll? Does it show up in your chat? Is that how it's working? Okay, look in the chat, Brittany.
There's an icon beside messages with a triangle, a square, and a circle. And if you press on that and then you press on polls, they have it on there.
Okay, thank you, because I don't know what it looks like on your side. So it's the little geometric shapes, Brittany. Did you find that? Just click on that. All right, good deal. We're up to 10. I need everybody in here. And if you're in the classroom, go ahead and log on to Google Meet so that you can participate in the polls. All right, so I'm going to move on. You'll have more opportunities to help that participation a little later. So this one is a dotted line. Everybody but one person who polled got that correct. All you have to do is if it's less than or greater than without an equal to, without this line at the bottom, it's going to be a dotted line. Just as a way of review here, if it's greater than or equal to, that's going to be a solid line. It's kind of almost like the line that tells us is equal to, tells us also it's a solid line. All right, so let's look at this one. I'm going to play with the polls and do another one right quick. I'll give you a chance to try this. Okay, so here we go. So is this line, is it greater than or equal to? Or is it less or just greater than? So I'm going to give you those two options. You'll see it here in just a second as I send them out. I don't have the ability to draw a line underneath it, so it's going to look a little different. All right, bring the polls up, go. The line that I have just drawn right here, is that going to be a less than or equal to, greater than equal to, or less than or greater than? Remember, if you don't know how to do it, you need to click on those shapes. And then the poll should pop up there. You want to click on polls. Chances are it'll show you a little indicator that the poll is there. All right, you got 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, so this is a solid line, so it would be less than or equal to. So that the poll was said less than with an equal sign following. So it would be this symbol. One last shot to get this right. All right, no one should miss this now. All right, so the question is this line is it less than or equal to or greater than or equal to? Or is it less than or greater than without the equal to? All right, there you go. Going to shorten the time down a little bit. You need to answer this poll right quick. No one should get this wrong. Ending in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, so the correct answer here, it is this one. Less than or greater than, not the or equal to. Dotted line will not be equal. I have 2 people still missing that. So after we have our line, after we have graphed a line, and we've determined when we graph that line whether it's supposed to be a solid line or a broken line, then the actual solution for an inequality is a whole region, and we shade either above the line or below the line. We have to shade the region that line is a boundary for. So if it's y is greater than or equal to, and we keep it in slope-intercept form, then we'll shade above the line. Or if it's y is less than in y-intercept form, then or slope-intercept form, then we'll shade below the line. So a greater than makes sense. It's everything greater on the y-axis, so we're going to shade above, and if it's less than, we'll shade below. Let's see what that actually looks like, okay? So here's what we're going to do. We're going to graph y is greater than or equal to x minus 2. Now, our first step is to graph the line y equals x minus 2. Now, we remember that if we have 2 points, we can graph a line, okay? So looking at this graph, the first thing I'm going to do is I need to graph that line of y equals x minus 2. Now, looking at the equation, I know it's going to cross the y-axis at negative 2. 1, 2, right there. And it has a slope of 1, which I could write as 1 over 1. So if I put a point here at negative 2, and my slope is 1 over 1, it tells me I have to rise over run. I run forward 1 and I rise 1. So my second point would be right here. And remember, my first point is right there. All right, so the next question is this. All right. I'm going to connect these 2 points with a line, but I've got to know which kind of line to use. So my question is, which line? Solid or dotted? Well, it says y is greater than or equal to, and I'm looking, and most folks, except for one person, has said solid. And that's correct. It's going to be a solid line because it's y is greater than or equal to x minus 2. And the or equal to part of that symbol is this straight line. You know, folks, that's the way I remembered it when I was in school. I remember, hey, line, line, no line, broken line. That's the way I remembered it. All right, so now, once I have graphed the line, that line serves as a boundary. So the question is, do I shade above the line or below the line? Well, since it is greater than, y is greater than, so every value on the y-axis is greater than this line, I'll shade above the line. And that's what my graph will look like. All right. So we're going to look at this several different ways, and we're going to use the same equation. So if I'm using the same equation, I'm using the same line. And if I'm using the same line, I'm using the same 2 points. So the parts I'll be determining then is what kind of line to use and what kind, and whether I need to shade above or below. Those are the things I need to know in order to graph these. We've got another one. So the question is, what kind of line? Is it going to be solid or is it going to be dotted? So it is y is less than or equal to, so it's going to be a solid line, and I've got the y-intercept of negative 2 and a slope of 1 on 1, so there's my 2 points. Here we go. I have a negative 2 is my y-intercept, run 1, rise 1. connect it with a solid line. Yep, that's what everybody voted. And since it's less than, I'll shade below like that. Let's look at another one. Do I do anything differently when the line is dotted rather than solid? Yes or no? Nope, not really. All right, so here we go. Let's graph this one real quick. Again, I'm going to graph the line, but this time the line is dotted. Same 2 points with a dotted line, and it's greater than, so I shade above the line. Pretty simple stuff, really, when you start to graph these. Same thing is true here. Now it's less than, same 2 points, same dotted line, and I'm going to shade below the line, just like that. All right, so let's look at another one. Let's graph this. All right, so I'm looking to graph, and then I need to know what kind of line. So let's just check it out. What kind of line will it be? I need everybody answer the poll. Is it solid? Is it dotted? All right, so here we go. All right, so this will be a dotted line. Okay, so that's what everybody said. Now, here's the next question. What's my y-intercept here? Is my y-intercept 3 or -1/2? Have you answered the poll? Are you on the meet?
Yeah.
So you got the polls. You got yours? I'm sure you were.
This one?
Do what? No, because you're in the room. All right. So I'm going to mute the mic. So the y-intercept is 3. So I know at 1, 2, 3, I'm going to put a line here. Now my slope is negative, so it's going to go downhill. Remember, I go down 1 as I run forward 2. So I'm going to run forward 1, 2, and go downhill 1. So that line's going to look like that. All right. So it is y is greater. So do I shade above? Where do I shade? And do I shade above the line or below? So far, everybody's got the right answer. Still waiting for you to answer that poll. Do I shade above or below? Y is greater than -1/2 plus 3. All right, so I'm going to have to shade above the line because it's greater than above. Well, what about this next one? I've got to figure out which inequality goes to the graph. Well, just looking at it, it's pretty simple to figure out because, first of all, it's a solid line, which means it can't be this first one, and it can't be this third one. So that just leaves me y is less than or equal to 1/3 x plus 2, or y is greater than or equal to 1/3 x plus 2. You know, really, I know that the y-intercept's 2, the slope is 1/3, so that's all the same. So the only thing I have to do is pick out which one is shaded below the line? That has to be the one that's y is less than or equal to 1/3 x plus 2. That's the correct answer. So, we can graph those lines. We're graphing lines that are going from left to right. Some of them have a positive slope, some have a negative slope. But how do we graph one that is an undefined slope, or in other words, it's a vertical line, a line that has what we would say no slope? Well, I don't know if you remember or not, but the vertical lines are all x equals something. There's no y in any vertical line, because a vertical line is x equals something. A horizontal line, a flat line, is y equals something. So it's going to be in the format of x equals some number, or x is greater than or equal to, less than or equal to. So what we have to know is this. If it's a vertical line, then if it's greater than, we shade to the right. If it's less than, we'll shade to the left. Well, that makes sense when you think about it. That just matches up the x-axis. So if I look at this one, well, first of all, that's going to be a vertical line here at x equals -2. And I'll draw a dotted one because it's just x is greater than -2. So I know at -2, I'm going to draw a dotted line there. Now, it says x is greater than -2, so I'm going to shade over here in this area because it says greater than. Let's look at another one. What about this? This is x is less than or equal to -2. So here at -2, again, I'm going to draw a line, but this time it'll be a solid line. And because it's less than, I'll shade to the left. What type of line do I use here, solid or dotted? Well, it's got to be a solid line because I have my equal to part. There's the line to tell me. And it's going to be a vertical line at 3. So now, where do I shade? Left or right? Greater than, shade to the right. Take your pencil and paper, please, and write this down. What I want you to do, and I said solve, but I really should say solve for y. We want to put this in slope-intercept form. That ought to look a little bit like the bell ringer that you had. So write that down, please, on pencil and paper right now. It's -3x minus 2y is less than 12. And we want it in slope-intercept form. We want to solve it for y. So jot that down on paper. So if we're going to solve it for y, here's what's got to happen. We got -3x minus 2y is less than 12. So I know that I need to move this -3x across the inequality. Remember, I wanted y is less than or greater than, whatever it is, mx plus b. So I want the x on the other side. So I'm going to do so by adding 3x to both sides. It's just solving equations. I've done that a lot, and you have to. So those cancel each other out. I'm left with -2y is less than or equal to 3x plus 12. If I want to get y by itself, in other words, I don't want that coefficient, Madison, of -2 there, that coefficient, I use Madison's word, I'm so proud. Then what I do is I divide it by -2. Well, now I've got to remember something here that I learned way earlier this school year. First of all, I know that those cancel. And I know that 3 divided by negative 2, I'm just going to write as negative 3 over 2x. And I know that 12 divided by negative 2 is negative 6. I got all that. But what do I do with the inequality sign? Does anybody know? I saw Malachi answer that. Anybody else know what to do? Yeah, I'm going to take this less than sign, and Malachi said it right. I'm going to reverse that sign like that. Why? Because I had to divide by negative 2. Anytime I multiply or divide by negative, reverses the sign. So now I've got y is greater than negative 3 over 2x minus 6. And that's it. I'm done. That's all I had to do. I got to remember, though, that when I go through, I have to reverse that sign. Write these two down, please. 2x plus 5y is greater than or equal to a negative 10. Let's solve these for y. And also, number 2, 2x minus 3y is greater than or equal to 15. So please jot those down on your paper right now. And solve for y. That way it'll be basically in slope-intercept form. All right, so my first step, subtract 2x from both sides. So this becomes 5y greater than or equal to negative 2x minus 10. Divide everything through by 5, so it becomes y is greater than or equal to negative 2/5 x minus 2. And I didn't have to reverse the sign because I divided by a positive. Let's look at number 2. Number 2 is very similar. Subtract 2x from both sides. And I get negative 3y is greater than or equal to a negative 2x plus 15. Now I'm going to divide by negative 3. Those cancel. I got y is less than or equal to 2/3 x minus 5. Oh, so there we go. That works fine. And notice that I reversed my sign. Why did I do that? Because I had divided by negative 3. So you can't make that mistake. That'll make your answer entirely wrong if you make that mistake. Want to give you one last kind of, if you would, we'll call this a mathematical hack. All right? Check it out. Now, I'm not going to talk about necessarily, we've talked about how to graph these. We're going to practice in just a few minutes, but here's what I want you to get. So I know this first step is to graph this boundary line, and it's got to be a solid line because this is greater than or equal to. And I know that I want to figure out which side of the line do I shade. Well, one of the things I can do is I can use a test point. And I'll use a test point that's not on the line. 0, 0 is an awesome line or awesome point to use, and it's easiest because 0, 0, when I plug it into the equation, is very simple to find. Give you for example here, if I put a 0 in for x, I put a 0 in for y, that's this point here, 0, 0. It's not on the line. So this becomes negative 3 over 2 times 0, which is just 0. Y is 0 as well. So is 0 greater than or equal to the one that's left? No, it's not. So I can use a test point and realize, no, I'm not going to shade this side. I'll have to shade the other side. I can use a test point to determine which side I shade. That's just another way to figure out how do I shade above or below the line. And it's simple, especially if I use the point 0, 0. Now, if the line is on 0, 0, I can't use that point, but I probably could use 1, 1. And that's pretty simple as well. So that tells us how to graph linear equations into variables, and how to shade, which line to use, whether it's dotted or whether it's solid. And so we're going to spend a little time and practice that, but we know now how to shade linear equations.